this one question is so brilliant. It says, is there a role for illusion? Does it help us to heal, or does it keep us from healing? That is such a good question, because for a long time in my energy healing practice, I always looked at illusion as just like an enemy. Just like a lot of people kind of look at in modern New Age circles, non-dual circles, people look at ego as kind of like an enemy, or anger as an enemy. And then it turns out, oh, the world isn't actually black and white. You know, there are places for everything and everything in its place. And so I've recently decided that illusion is like that. So the answer isn't so simple, but it's more interesting than, oh yeah, illusion's a bad guy. So the answer is that illusion, all forms of illusion, so like misconceptions and miscommunications and hypnosis and false beliefs, false concepts, all these are kind of like forms of illusions. All of them come back to one thing. They come back, and we covered this a little bit yesterday too, they come back to the wholeness. One wholeness of creation must go through a process of breaking apart into many in order to produce the diversity of our reality. So one appears as many. One appears as many. And when it appears as many, this appearance is essentially illusory, because the one never really stops being the one. And it so integrates with the many, with its form that it creates, that the one is found in every point of creation, every point of the many. The one is found. So this is why we call the perception of the universe as being only diverse as illusion. It is diverse at the relative level, but it is not only diverse. It is also still one wholeness. It's a very interesting thing how it works. And the energy healing process is a process of bringing back, like remembering, bringing back the experience of the one into the many. So from the point of the many, from the point of some part of the body that hurts, or from the point of some aspect of your finances that feel lacking or empty somehow, we bring fullness back, right? You can reestablish totality, wholeness, completion, resolution in those places that are feeling a little empty or incomplete. And that is done first on the level of consciousness. And once it happens on the level of consciousness, then the material level of creation follows. And the material level of creation is constantly restructuring and reforming itself. So as it follows the blueprint or the pattern set down by consciousness. So we look at the symptom on the surface, right? Something hurts, or there's an illness, or there's something in a relationship or finances or whatever. And we look at the symptom, and then we allow the awareness to go to experience it at a finer level, at a more delicate level, until we get down to the seed of what's causing that symptom. What is the basic function that's causing it? Is it fear? Is it fear of making a mistake? I don't want to try something new because I'm afraid I will mess up, or is it this underlying feeling of, well, actually, I am inherently separate from the wholeness of creation. I am inherently separate from the divine, and we worked a lot with that one yesterday, I believe. That often is the fundamental that affects ego, that when the ego is off and it's not being useful, is because there's some element of feeling separate, even down at like the individual end of the spectrum of ego. There's that little individual self feels like not good enough, not fine. So You find the seed, and then consciousness addresses that seed, and it just makes it, it's always just a tiny, at the seed level, it's such a small movement. It's such an inner movement, such a delicate little inner movement. It's just a little flip, like a little flip of a switch to, oh, I see, my little individuality felt like it wasn't good enough. It was separate from divinity. And so we just flip the switch so that the light of divinity shines, and it shines as a byproduct of awareness being right there at that seed. That's how it happens, because awareness is totality, is wholeness. So just have that moment where you realize, oh, that's what it was. Then that just shifts everything. Everything's, it just shifts on that level of consciousness. It shifts and shifts and shifts, and then it's restructured. And then that particular seed that was causing a particular symptom is gone. That means the symptom no longer has a foundation in the field of your awareness or consciousness. And it starts to change and move in the direction of what has been freshly established, which is wholeness. Wholeness, health is wholeness. So sometimes the physical material part, it takes a little while to catch up, right? Because you do the change on the level of consciousness, and then the changing of the material relative, depending on how deep or how long, or what's the underlying patterning there with the physical material. But this is why over the course of time doing energy healing, what you find is that everything just gets better. It gets better over the course of time. So does illusion help us heal, or does it keep us from healing? I would say it's different in different circumstances. Sometimes the illusion helps us heal because it shows us the place where the attention needs to go. And I found that is especially so in emotional damage or in relationships. If you're facing someone, you're facing a situation that you faced before, and it's very painful, and it's like an abusive relationship, something like that. There'll come a point when a person is little, if they have abusive childhood, it's very difficult for a child to separate themselves from their parents. The parents are not seen as fallible individuals to a child. Child does not see the parent as a fallible individual. Only when they become preteens and teenagers do they start to see their parents as fallible. But when they're little, the parents are essentially forces of nature that create a structure around that child that shape the child's development. There's a lot of kind of innate respect for adults. Adults are not seen in the same category as other little kids, for example, right? Kids can be sort of ruthless with each other, very difficult with each other, but adults, it's a different story with adults. And then there comes that point where the fallibility is seen. And then the reaction is, and we're going back and we're healing for anybody who's got this situation, just by the way, that includes for you as an individual, and that also includes for ancestors. The fallibility is seen, but the patterning of how does a person deal with a stressful situation is still at that point adopted from watching or from the patterning that they've learned from the adults. It's only at the point where that negativity is witnessed, where the individual, where the challenge, the illusion that you are being hurt and it's your fault, the illusion is seen for what it is, and it is carried, the awareness follows back to the source of the problem, which is here. Even if somebody's behavior, you can point a finger and say, that person's behavior is out of line. You can do that sometimes, but that doesn't change the fact that you are in the right time and the right place to be the recipient of that bad behavior, right? So that means there's something here. So we look to here. And then when we see that thing, and it's often mirrored, there's a kind of a mirror, even if your behavior doesn't mirror, like you know better, right? You see somebody's behavior, you think that person's behavior is out of line. I shan't do that. But then you look here and it's like, ooh, but that hurt, the hurt is here. Then when you see the hurt, the awareness coming into that seed, it reveals it as illusion. But if it weren't for the situation on the surface, if it weren't for the unreasonable, outrageous, outlandish, because sometimes it's like that, the more outlandish the experiences on the surface, the deeper the revealing that we find here in our own hearts. The more outrageous the illusion is on the surface, the more deep the revealing in the heart. And then when we see what's going on in our own heart, oh, my heart was like echoing that. It was mirroring it. It was reflecting back to myself. Oh, they say that I'm terrible and I'm useless and I'm worthless and I'm disposable. And then it's like, oh, I feel like I'm useless and worthless and disposable, right? So it looks right in there at that thing. And then all of a sudden the light shines on that thing and it's like, oh, wait a minute, but I'm divine being, right? Oh, the illusion has been useful. It has shown what needed to be seen. Just the seeing alone, in most cases, is enough to set the healing process in order, to set it on its track. And one can only thank the person who was out of line, right? It's like, wow, they sacrificed their personality so that I could learn a lesson. That's a big sacrifice, right? Can only bless and love and appreciate the fact that they would. So does it keep us from healing? Yeah, sometimes illusion will. Anytime the illusion of separation, the illusion that what's going on in the process of manifestation is the important thing that's going on, more important than wholeness. Anytime that happens, then it covers the wholeness. And anytime the wholeness is covered, then we're losing out on the full potential of what we could be experiencing at that point. The thing is that the process by which the divine creates this creation is so fascinating. It's so beautiful. It's so compelling. It's like one wants to kind of dive in and explore it. Cannot lose track of the underlying reality that there's something that's not manifest at all, that's behind it all. And whatever is being manifest to allow that wholeness to express itself. I'm asking, can we do a healing for everybody for that? And the answer is yes. So what we're doing is, all we're doing, this is very simple. All that's happening is we're just checking in with everybody, and like everybody's got a different point along that spectrum of manifestation where they tend to lose track of the wholeness. We all have different points, and sometimes it's like different organs or different systems or different parts of the body, different levels of the body, maybe the cellular level or the subcellular level or the tissue level or wherever it is. But wherever that point is, the key point, the main point, the primary point, now that's the point that we're addressing. And now I'm seeing it's all kind of like falling, it's like collapsing back to the causal level of the physiology. Yesterday I threw the chart up there, which I'm not going to take my time to do now, but the causal being the deepest material level, the finest manifest level, just that manifestation just across the doorway from unmanifest wholeness. So just there, that deepest. So we're in the spectrum where each person has a point where they tend to lose connection, but then we're also working at the causal level, which is that first initial. And so the healing itself is being initiated at the causal level, and it's producing, what's happening is the causal bodies are producing an impulse of intelligence. Some people's physiologies are producing multiple impulses of intelligence, like sequences. sequences, a sequence of impulses. These impulses are impulses of your pure potential. We talked quite a bit about that yesterday too. Your pure potential, because your pure potential is that expression of your physiology which is closest to pure divine being. It is the closest. So these are impulses of like illuminated expression. It's like showing, like that. It's showing of the pure potential as it exists within each manifest spectrum of the physiology along that, from more fine to more dense, through the tissues. It's a little bit like a self-referral loop of consciousness going from the source of creation up through all the material expression, awakening pure potential at every point. Pure potential, we could say, if we wanted to define it, is the most integrated level of your own being with divinity, with wholeness, with totality. It's the part of you that just looks like the divine. It's the divine you. Hearts, the heart centers are getting it. They're enjoying that download. Your heart center, knowing who you really are, not disposable, precious.